My brothers from another mother, what is going on? In today's video, I've got a request from a subscriber to do a topic on women that are interrogating him to identify his intention in dating. Is basically how I'm going to distill it. And before I dive into it, folks, I just want to apologize for the crap video quality. I'm still using my 1080p webcam for this video. And my new camera hasn't arrived yet, so just bear with me. Anyway, so he sends me a screenshot here. I'm just looking for it. Okay, so they're having a conversation. They've exchanged some pictures back and forth, and he goes to carry on, and then she says out of the blue, so what exactly are you looking for? And he says, to date, you. Question mark, basically, is what he's saying. To date, comma, you. And then she goes, are you looking for a relationship or just fun? And then he goes on in his question, because he's been hit up by a version of this several times. He's in his late 30s. This particular woman, he said, was 34, single mom, has one 4-year-old kid, looks attractive in the pictures, he said, would love to date her. But he doesn't understand why these women are so pushy and interrogating when it comes to what are you looking for. Because I think as guys in general, when we date, we're just, let's meet somebody and see what they're like. Just take it easy, take it as it comes. And I think we have more of a nonchalant attitude the older that we get. Let's talk about that in a second. I'm just going to make a note here to dive into that. Older we get, and why that changes with age. We'll get into that in a second. But this woman wants to know, what are your true intentions? And he goes, it's not that like it's happened once. He goes, it keeps happening over and over again. He goes, in his message to me that there was a date that he had scheduled, and like a half an hour before the date, the woman messaged him by text and said, look, if you're not looking for a relationship, I don't want to waste our time. And he basically says, look, how do I know what she's like? Is she even relationship material? Am I going to want to see her again? Like, maybe she's somebody that could be a friend. Maybe she's somebody that I have a fling with. Maybe she's somebody that's, a long-termer. You never know. And I totally agree with him. So ladies, if you're watching this, my recommendation is chill out a little bit and just, see how things go. Guys, women are doing that because of the sexual marketplace value, and I'll explain what this is right now. So let's dive into it. First of all, let's talk about the term "the wall," because that's what we're hitting here. Men and women hit this peak, and for men it's late 30s, for women it's early 20s, and this term, "the wall," was coined in the professional sports world. Basically, athletes have a shelf life, at which point they're no longer valuable to the team, and younger players are better, faster, stronger. So in baseball, for example, a pitcher's arm will only last so long before he has to stop pitching and move on to something else. Same thing with football players and basketball players. Their body takes a lot of punishment doing what they do professionally, so at some point they hit a wall, they can no longer do what they're doing, and they have to move on to something else. It's been postulated, interestingly enough, in the manosphere that the term "the wall" was adopted first by women to shame other women that are showing up in their space. It was said that there was women that were criticizing somebody. Oh, look at her. What is she doing here? She's hit the wall. She doesn't even look that good, sort of thing. But I digress. Whatever it means, it means. So the sexual marketplace value chart here is what we're going to dive into right now. And on this axis here, we've got on a scale of 1 to 10, the SMV, again, sexual marketplace value. And on this scale over here, from 15 to 70, we've got age. Now, men and women mature sexually at roughly the same age. 10, 11, 12, 13, whatever it might be. It's basically the age at which women first have their period and boys have their probably first wet dream, let's say. So we both mature sexually at nearly the same time in our lives. But emotionally, intellectually, all of that happens at a different time for men and women in our lives. For men, it happens in the early 30s, and for women, it happens in the early 20s. So that's why it's not that uncommon to see somebody that's 40, for example, dating a 25-year-old. It actually works fairly reasonably well. That creates a problem for women, which is why a lot of them can get very pushy in trying to identify what it is that you're doing, because they don't want to waste their time. It's really as simple as that. That's all that it boils down to. And because they don't want to waste their time, women, I've talked about this before, women tend to communicate on a covert basis. And when they rely on overt communication, it's because they've basically run out of ways to drop the hints. You'll see it a lot in many of my videos when I'm talking about subjects like this, where men are nodding, going, yeah, makes sense. And then women start to disagree. They don't even watch the whole video most of the time, but they start to disagree in the comment, and the way they respond to the cold hard truth or the facts is they tend to shame or try to insult me. They'll poke at something about me, like visually, like, oh, look, you're bald, or you're a loser, or you probably don't even date, or you haven't been laid, or something like that. And that's usually a pretty good sign that I'm par for the course and the information that I'm presenting is accurate and true, because the cold hard truth does hurt. Anyway, so moving back onto this, so women will peak around the early 20s, at which point we think for both men and women that it continues on. Men will peak in the late 30s, and at the point of around 30, there's an intersection where women's value starts to decline and men's value is still carrying on and increasing. And the reason for that is women mature sexually, are able to reproduce easiest under the age of 25. It's biological. It's just fact. It's the truth. Some women will subscribe to what the media and TV and publications have been telling them, which is mostly lies. That you can settle down. Basically, you can have it all. So you have these women that have gone to university, they've got their professional careers, and they make six figures, and and they think that they've pushed the wall back into their 30s. But the truth of the matter is their SMV was highest in their early 20s when they were easily able to reproduce and have a higher sexual marketplace value. Men, it doesn't really change much until the 40s, at which point it also declines. But men can have children, well into their 40s. They're sexually able to have children at that age without a hell of a lot of trouble. But for women, their ability to have children declines rapidly after the age of about 25. And after the age of about 40, it's pretty dangerous for them to try to carry a term of pregnancy. Not that it doesn't happen. There's women out there that have done it. But it can be fairly dangerous for an older woman to have or to carry the term of a pregnancy. So that's why those bell curves have shown up there. Now, there's this dotted line which I've drawn here, which is basically the lie that men and women tend to believe. We both believe that our sexual marketplace value is a lot higher than what it truly is, and it's a fictitious line. Okay, it's artificial, and the reason for that is the overvaluation that we get from cues like social media, the Sex and the City TV shows, dating sites, and how we're lied to. And I'll explain that. So social media, for example, if you go to Instagram, you could very easily find an attractive 40-something-year-old woman that's divorced, has some kids, is a fitness competitor, takes care of herself, physically with nutrition and rest and all that sort of stuff. But the truth of the matter is that photograph that she's posting in that tiny little low resolution 2.5 by 2.5 window on social media can garner 1,000 likes, a whole bunch of comments from men and women. You go, girl, will be what the women will say. And the guys will say something like, oh, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful, I can't wait to see you, da-da-da-da. Let's go out, I private message you. And they get hammered, they get showered on social media with attention. So they think that their value is considerably higher than what the truth of the matter is. I mean, the reason why this woman, my friend, was pushing you, because even though she's 35 and she's gorgeous and she's got a very high level of attraction, she truthfully knows that her SMV has declined and that it's not really up here. Even though she believes it, she probably has a nice Instagram collection of photographs. She's probably seen the Sex and the City series and believes that those three, was it 3 women or 4 women? I don't know. Anyway, that those women can do and have it all. But the truth of the matter is the women in that show were well past their prime. They were into their 40s. If they were in their 20s, that show would be a little bit more believable, but it's artificial to believe the stuff that you see on television is truthful. Dating sites are a great example of how it artificially rises or increases sexual marketplace value or the perception of it. You can take a woman that's like a 7 or 8 out of 10, for example, who can post a profile on a dating site, and 2 weeks later she'll probably get 500 messages. I'm not even kidding, guys. If you ask a attractive female friend how online dating works, you'll see for yourself it's true. Women, it's true. Post a comment below and let the guys know. But basically, they can get hammered with a ton of messages, which leads them to believe that their sexual marketplace value is higher than what it is, that they're spoiled for choice, that they can choose anything that they want out there. And they can. They they truthfully can, but they're hardwired. Their internal biology, their hardwiring is telling them to find, secure, and settle down and look for safety. Guys tend to play to win, and women play not to lose. And that's not a derogatory statement or anything like that. That's just how our biology works. That's how we're designed. We're also lied to other ways through advertising, the Cosmopolitan magazines, the blah, blah, blah. It's like the you go girl, you can have it all sort of thing. And you've got a demographic of women that are these highly successful, overworked, overstressed, probably divorced with a couple of kids that are trying to push their sexual marketplace value up here when it's realistically already declined. Now, these things move back and forth. I might have mentioned this before in another video, but they're not static. Sexual marketplace value is not necessarily fixed at 23 and 39. If you take care of yourself, good nutrition, good choices, good eating habits, good rest, all that sort of stuff, you can push it back a bit. The things that can take away from SMV are really bad lifestyle choices: obesity, drinking, partying, smoking, being a single parent, working way too much, stuff like that. So these things are not, static lines in the sand. They can be, people can hit the wall earlier, or they can hit the wall a little later in life. Now, to talk about this point over here with the older we get as men, as you can see by these, two bell curves here, men learn after the age of about 30 that their value is higher. We start to see the opportunity to date younger women that had previously ignored us. There's interest that comes from women that are younger, more attractive than somebody our own age that we can date very easily. It's not that difficult. Usually by our late 30s, guys have our shit figured out. We've got our act together. We've got lifestyle choices that work. We've got a house probably paid off. We own toys, cars, things like that. We're able to travel, take vacations. You're basically more spoiled for choice as a man the older that you get when it comes to the dating pool than you are for women, which is why some of these women get very, very pushy, because even though they think they're up here, they know that their value is truthfully down over here. So guys are less, we're not desperate when it comes to the dating pool at that age. That's why we're not asking women ourselves, so what are your true intentions? What are you looking for? What exactly are you looking for is what that screenshot said. You'll never see a guy that'll text a woman that'll go, what exactly are you looking for? It doesn't usually happen unless they've got fairly low sexual marketplace value and they're unattractive. They don't bring a lot to the table. They might get pushy, but men tend to be more spoiled for choice the older they get. And again, it does start to die off for men as well. The bell curve does go down. Anyway, that is my presentation there. I hope that answers your question. That is why the women that you've been dating in their mid-30s have been pushy and have been asking for, it's almost like they're asking for a commitment early on before they've even met. It's like you don't even know what this person's like, and they're pushing you to find out what you're looking for. So, ladies, relax. You can't do anything about this. Just own it, guys. That's why women are asking you questions like that. And that is the wall. I'd love to hear your opinion, folks. Leave a comment below, smash the like button, and of course share it if there's somebody that needs to see this video. I appreciate you guys greatly for subscribing to my channel and watching my big fat head move around talking about stuff like this. We'll see you guys in the next video. Of course, if you have any requests, you can leave them in the comments below. Talk to you later. Peace.